Welcome to Mimi's Math Channel. Today I will discuss using Desmos for square roots and cube roots. I've already showed you what the work would look like, so I'm just going to demonstrate how to verify your answers. So for the square roots, that's going to be example 1. The cube roots will be example 2. The first square root that we have is a simple perfect square, square root of 9. What square roots mean is I need to be able to take either a number or a variable and multiply it times itself 2 times. And the reason I say 2 times is because it's understood that there's an index of 2 here. And if I can do that, then I can now bring that number or variable out without the radical. So this is what it looks like in Desmos. We're going to type 9 divided by, and the inverse of a square root is a square. So we're going to take x and we're going to square it. Make sure you're on the same row and you want to select this icon that looks like a gear and choose table. You can either highlight 2 for whatever number that is there and just press enter until you see 0 point something on the Y side, or you can type the number 3 or the next number that's shown and keep pressing enter until you see in the Y column 0 point something. When you see 0 point something, you want to go back up until you get to the first whole number. Notice I have more than one whole number. I want the first one. If you ever see a 1, that means that your answer is just going to be the number that's in front of it, which is 3. That was the answer that we came up with. So for square root of 18, however, I'm going to now change this 9 to an 18, and I still divided by x squared. Do the same step, gear, table. This time I'm just going to type the number 3 and keep pressing enter until I get to 0 point something on the Y side. Go back up, and my first whole number is a 2. When I go back to the whole number for the Y column, it has to stay under the radical. What's in the X column comes outside of the radical. So my answer is 3 root 2. For C, I have square root of 26. I'm going to change this 18 to a 26. Still dividing by x squared, same process. Now, this time I noticed that 26 is actually in the Y column and 1 is in the X column. That means I cannot further simplify this. So I have to leave this 26 under the radical. You don't have to put the 1 in front of it. And then the last square root example is going to be where you have a number on the outside, then it's multiplied times the square root. So I'm just going to bring this number down. I'm not going to put that in Desmos. I'm only concerned about putting the radical portion in Desmos. So now I have 24 divided by x squared. Go to the settings, table, enter, enter, enter. And I see that if I go back up, the part that stays in the radical is the 6. The part that comes out is 2. So 2 root 6 is my answer from Desmos. That's this part. I have to remember though, I had a number out front. So all of this is multiplying. So I'm going to take 3 times that 2, and that's my 6. And then the root 6, I can't do anything with that. So that's just next to it. So 6 times root 6. Now we're going to move on to cube roots. Pay attention to the index because that will throw off your answer if you don't. So this time the cube root of 8 means that I need to take a number or a variable and multiply it times itself 3 times in order to come out from under the radical. This time I'm going to take 8 divided by x cubed, and then I'm just going to follow the same steps. I'm going to my gear setting, select table, and I want to press enter, enter until I get to 0 point something. If I go back up, I notice here that 1 is under the radical. Anytime 1 is under the radical, I'm going to be able to bring it out because 1 times itself 3 times is still 1. 1 times itself 2 times is still 1. So I can just ignore that and just look at the x column, and that's my answer too. If I were to try to put this one in, I would advise that you do not put the negative portion in because it's going to leave you an answer with a negative under the radical, and we don't want that. I could rewrite this as the cube root of -1 times the cube root of 54. Or I can understand that negative simply means taking -1 times itself 3 times. And that will allow me to bring it outside of the radical. Now the 54, I'm going to go into Desmos, but again, there's a cube root there. So 54 divided by x cubed, go to the settings, table, same method. And when I go above, this is 3, and you're going to want to say root 2, but it's not 3 root 2, it's 3 times cube root of 2. That matters. However, I have to remember that I already brought out this -1, so it's really -1 times 3 times cube root of 2 for a final answer of -3 cube root of 2. For C, I'm going to take the cube root of 10. So once I go to my table, I'm going to notice notice that 10 is in the y column, which means I can't take it from under the radical, and 1 is in front. My answer is just going to remain the same. For D, I see a 4 on the outside. Go ahead and pull that down, and I'm only focused on taking the cube root of 108 in Desmos. Once I go to my table, do the same thing, and I see that I have 3 cube root of 4. So that's going to be this part, 3 cube root of 4. I have to remember that I have the 4 on the outside. So 4 times that 3 is the 12, and then I can do nothing with the cube root of 4 because there's not a number times itself 3 times that will give me 4. So this is my final answer. It will be helpful if you just knew your perfect squares and your perfect cubes. I just stopped at 6 cubes since we didn't go over that. That way you can find some factors. That makes sense. So here for the square root of 24, it would make sense to use a perfect square that's a factor versus 12 times 2 or 8 times 3 because you will keep going and going and going. Whereas if I just use for 24, I know it has to be 1, 4, 9, or 16. Which one of those are divisible by 24? So it's 4. 4 times what is 24? It's 6. So that's how you start the process if you want to look at your perfect squares and your perfect cubes. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Have an amazing day.